and a very warm welcome to live coverage of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. We are here at the Korea International Circuit in the southwestern tip of the Korean Peninsula, Sean Henshelwood. Now, this is the third of 5 race weekends for the season, and already Alessio Picariello has developed a 41-point lead at the top of the standings. The question is, got to be, can anyone stop him?
He's been the standout performer this year. Of course, very, very good. Last year, lost the championship by just a single point. So far this year, 2 victories. He only made the 1 victory last year. It has started very, very well for him. A lot of his rivals have thrown in the towel, but still, there is a long way to go.
Well, looking down, we've got Frankie Chung, who is 41 points behind on 58 points. He has not qualified so well. Someone who has qualified well today is Martin Rump. He will start from pole position after a pretty interesting qualifying session, which we can talk more about later. But is this the time that Martin Rump, the young Estonian, kickstarts his season?
Certainly is time for Martin Rump to start to record some good results in the champion racing team. Of course, 4-time winner, season high in 2016, but had a fairly mixed start to 2017. He'll be looking to really try and make something of this pole position that he got earlier today. So really will be a chance for some of these other drivers to make inroads. And of course, you're talking about bad qualifying positions. We see, I think it's the 4th row now, that Alessio Picariello will start this race because of complicated conditions in qualifying earlier today. Unfortunately, the weather is playing a part again now. It's just been declared a wet race, which means teams have the choice on slick or wet weather Pirelli tyres. So it could be a very, very interesting day today.
So we just saw the cars leave the garage and go on to the outlap, and they'll be starting in just a little under 15 minutes time. Alex Young, 3-time and reigning champion, is way down in the standings. He told us last time out in Suzuka that he's already thrown in the towel for this season. Is he bluffing, or is he really thinking he's too far back?
I think there's a fair bit of emotion in that comment at the time. It was immediately after the race. He'd had another bad race, spins again at 130R. Yep. He was lucky not to hit anything and really has given his championship hopes a big blow. But you can never say never. We've still got a long way to go. Still a lot of points yet to score in this championship. And who knows, Alessio Picariello could have a very bad close out to this season. So still a long way to go. And
a quick word for the local hero, KOU. Hasn't done so well so far this season, but always seems to perform here at this particular circuit. How do you think he's going to do today?
Well, I think the local drivers on their home circuits always raise the game a little bit. KO's been a 2-time podium finisher in the 3 previous starts, the 6 previous races we've had here at Korea International Circuit. And of course, a very popular driver here at home, always mobbed down there on the grid. I'm sure there'll be a big crowd down there now as he gets ready for this start. So could be an interesting weekend too for KOU, and did quite well in qualifying.
Well, we can join Sophie, who is down on the grid, with Martin Kuhl, the head of Customer Sport Racing Asia.
Martin, welcome to the show. The 4th time here in Korea International Circuit, but possibly the first time that we get a race in rainy conditions. So what is your take, or how do you think about today's race?
Correct, it's the first time. We already had a very complicated qualifying this morning. It was raining a little bit and then more, so the drivers who changed faster to wet tires made a better decision and had more qualifying laps with the wet tires. The result is Martin Rump is on pole, but in general the mix, the grid is very mixed up. So we have drivers more on front of the grid that usually are maybe more on the back. I guess for the race that means we will have a lot of action and overtaking to expect.
Thank you so much, Martin, for your time, and good luck for all the drivers. Now it's your time to cross back to your guys upstairs.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Martin. Certainly very wise words. He's one of few people in the Audi Sport program that's actually been to every race in the 6 seasons of the Audi Sport Audi R8 LMS Cup. So very interesting thoughts from Martin Kuhl, and he'll be very interested to see how this one plays out. And of course, as he mentioned, the weather is going to play a big part of today's proceedings.
Well, let's talk about qualifying from earlier, because it was a bit of they had a real late weather switch. They all went out, just a 15-minute session. They all went out on the slicks, the dry tyres. But the track conditions seemed to be pretty wet. Some of the drivers made the immediate decision to come in, change the tyres, and then get back out to try and record a lap in time. Those that did so did very, very well. Some who stayed out, not so well.
It was a real strategy call, and some teams got caught out thinking perhaps that the track would dry. Then they would be on the right tyre. The wet weather choice would have been the wrong one. But for teams certainly like Martin Rump, if we look down the list, also David Chen back for the Tianjia Racing team, very inspired choice, and they'll start towards the front of this field.
So the race will be getting underway in about 9 minutes time. Let's take a look at what happened last time out in Suzuka, Japan, with some pretty interesting racing now. And there's a very well-known circuit. Alex Young referred to it as the best circuit on the F1 track.
It was, and he was certainly right in the mix, but the man that took the lead off the start, it was the Absolute Racing supported drivers, Alessio Picciarello and Mitch Gilbert. This big contact, talking about Alex Young, he did say before the weekend, there is on screen battling teammate Marchie Lee. That is very hard circuit to overtake on, certainly without contact. No such problem from Alessio Picciarello. Third race of the year, he was on his way to his second win, and then this was the reigning champion. Around once, around twice at 130R. That's a place that is usually very, very unforgiving. You see it on Marchie Lee's onboard camera. Stefan Rakelmi doing a great job in the Castrol Racing team in his substitute role. But he crossed the line third, Mitch Gilbert second, Alessio Picciarello first place.
So on to round 4, and Frankie Chung, this is where he started his comeback after a disappointing season last year. He started from pole position from this race here and cut across, managed to hold the line and drove very well.
The key was the start, and he was worried about the two drivers behind him, which he is in the same team. This was as a result of a problem for Alex Young. He got caught up in contact with Anthony Liu, the Chinese driver. That brought him back down pit lane, and another tough weekend for him. Good battle, Jeffrey Lee and Berit Birambakti, and certainly there was some great racing through the field. There's another good passing move, Rakelmi. Marchie Lee forcing him a little bit wide at the chicane, the start-finish line. Another good result for Mitch Gilbert, running towards the front of the field, but up front, nobody could stop Frankie. He'd found some new confidence, was very, very fast, took the victory, and that was just what the Chinese motorsport star needed.
And David Chen also performing well in the AM Plus class. Frankie, of course, on top of the professional podium. We'll see David Chen. But the overall standings, got Alessio Picciarello, 41-point lead from Frankie Chung, Mitch Gilbert, Martin Rump, Sean Thong. Marchie Lee, who's not here this weekend, and Alex Young in 7th. And I mentioned David, a pretty good weekend from the young Chinese driver. He's come fresh into the series. He starts unbelievably, Sean, from the front row of the grid. He was one of those drivers who switched in that late decision after he'd gone out in qualifying to the wet tyres. How well can he do? Can he stay in the overall podium positions?
Well, I think he's learnt from his debut at Suzuka, where he said he was a little bit awestruck by some of the drivers he was competing against, and now he's had a chance to race with them, to know that he's competitive enough to be there on pure speed. And keep a close eye on the Tianhe Racing driver, because he really did a very good job. Now, looks Sophie is back down on the grid. She is with the pole sitter for round 5 of the Audi R8 LMS Cup, and that, of course, is Estonia's Martin Rump.
Martin, you weren't able to have enough time in practice this weekend, but you still qualified on pole. How did you do that?
Well, I think first off, it was just a very tricky qualifying, so we managed to do the right decisions, and the team did an awesome job changing the tires quickly for me, so I had the time to push on wet tires. But yeah, it was a bit of a strategy yesterday with, missing all this training, and well, it was just good to turn it around this morning, and hopefully we can deliver now.
Thank you so much, and good luck. Nicer time. Back to the panel.
Well, Sean, Martin Rump, as we saw, at pole position. Crucially, he does not have any weight. This is a penalty ballast from the previous round in Suzuka. The people who do carry weights will have Frankie Chung starts in 9th position with an additional 50 kilos. Alessio Picciarello, 1 place ahead of him in 8th with 35. And then Mitch Gilbert in 5th position. He starts with 20 kgs next to him as an additional passenger. But the top 3 don't, so that shouldn't affect anyone at the start.
It shouldn't. You've seen it happen before. Certainly Martin Rump was one last year who could start with 50 kilograms of success ballast. Of course, you get that by finishing on the podium. First, an extra 50, second, an extra 35, and third, an extra 20 kilograms. So they will have to consider that. Now, it's going to be very interesting for the first start, and the drivers that have that penalty will certainly be at somewhat of a disadvantage, but rolling first start will make a big difference.
Sean, I'll just give you a quick moment to introduce this track here, Herman Tilke design, but what are some of the key points on this track? Where can we expect to see some overtakes?
Well, there's a couple of spots, certainly down at turns 3 and 4. And 4's a very famous one, of course, for those who are historians of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. That was where much of the drama started 12 months ago in that fantastic battle that ran all season long between Alex Young and Alessio Picciarello. But certainly down the end of the main straight. But a lot of these moves can be fraught with disaster given the short amount of visibility they have. Certainly the position they sit in the car, visibility left and right, and the speed in which they approach corners. It's also fairly blind. So Sophie is down on pit lane, or on the grid rather, with David Chen from the Tianxia racing team from position 2 in this race.
David Chen as an amateur driver, but joining here starting from the 2nd place, and they seem to be raining very soon. What is your strategy today?
I think I would just do my best because it was quite lucky this morning. So I don't know how it will turn out this afternoon, if it rains heavier or not. But I think I'll just try my best to stay in the front and keep up with Martin.
Good luck for you, David, and back to your guys.
Well, Sean, David is a very, very nice young man. He's pretty quiet, pretty understated. He's fast, though. Does he have the confidence, do you think, to stay at the front?
He's done a couple of races this year with some of the international series, TCR Asia series. Certainly he was at the Cup last time round at Suzuka. Raced with a lot of these guys and realised I have the ability to do this on pure speed. So he will be one to watch, and certainly I think he'll stay out of trouble. They're starting partway through the championship. So I'm not sure he'll really push the point, but he'll be right there. Keep a close eye on the TSRT car.
Yeah, well, the danger is that he is a little bit overall. But we can now take another look at the track here. As we said before, 5.6 kilometres and 18 turns. And you mentioned, Sean, turns 3 and 4 there, really a pretty early point in each lap where we can expect to see some
코너가 18개가 있는 서킷인데요. FIA 그레이드 1 서킷입니다. F1 경기가 열릴 수 있는 서킷이고 실제로 4차례 그랑프리가 열렸었죠. 그리고 3번 코너, 4번 코너.
Short corner, stop corner, first gear, same with turn 4. Then through the 5-6 complex, the faster sweeping corners are where the professional drivers will have a greater advantage over the amateurs. Through turns 13, 14, and a lot of drivers pick the key as 14 to 16 as being one of the keys to getting speed from this Korea international circuit venue. So a lot to look forward to as we come ahead of this 30-minute race.
Well, the drivers are just getting ready, but they're going through their final thoughts. The grid will be clearing in just a few moments' time. It's been wet. It's been declared a wet weather race, which gives the drivers, I believe, the option to choose between the dries and the wets, and that could be a strategy. Perhaps if it continues to rain throughout the race, they'll want to stay on those wets, but if it dries very quickly, it's probably not worth coming in at this point. It's only 30 minutes. It's a sprint race, but we saw some big differences between the wets and the dries in qualifying. So is that something to think about in such a short race?
It is certainly a strategy call for the teams. Is it going to be dry? Is it going to be wet? No one can predict that. You just don't know what it's going to do. So it could play either way. Some teams that have nothing to lose may roll a dice, take a gamble, and take the opposite approach, just in case. Because, as you say, if you have to come down pit lane and make a pit stop, you will lose a significant amount of time. Maybe not a lap, but certainly a big part of that lap. And if the conditions change again and you're caught wrong-footed, it'll make a big difference.
And the drivers hadn't had a chance to practice, apart from just the select few who got a few laps in the wet. They've been practicing in the dry all weekend long. So how much is that going to trouble these drivers, and how well they can adapt to it is going to be key.
It certainly is, and that's a lot of what they're considering down on the grid now. The teams are talking about it, the drivers are trying to prepare themselves, and also mentally, the approach you have for wet weather driving is different to dry weather driving. So whilst they're happy to face whatever conditions they are, one thing I think wholesale most drivers will tell you is they'd rather the conditions were consistent and not changing mid-race. Certainly makes it interesting for us, and it'll make it very interesting for them too behind the wheel.
Well, it's the first race of the weekend, which means that it'll be a rolling start after they just do one lap to warm up. So that's what's going to be happening in just a few moments' time. We talked about the front row of the grid, Martin Rump and David Chen. Sean, just to talk through some of the other placings there, with Alex Young from third.
Certainly Alex Young did a good job. He was able to use some of that strategy call on the wet weather tyres. The one they were looking at, though, interestingly, was points leader Alessio Picariello. They watched him doing some very fast sector times on slick tyres. So what they decided in the end is some of the teams thought, well, if he's going that quickly on a set of slick tyres, maybe the conditions are starting to dry. We won't make the change. As you say, 15 minutes to make the decision. It costs a couple of minutes coming down pit lane, make the tyre change, go back out, get up to speed. You could lose 5 or 6 minutes. So as the clock's ticking, you need to make a decision. You need to make it immediately as the 30-second board comes in for the field to follow the safety car around for this lap, getting ready for a start. See windscreen wipers on some of the cars too, so this could be very, very interesting.
So David Chen from second position in the Amateur Plus class. Anthony Liu, who starts from fourth, also in that class. He's another very, very quick driver. Sometimes every bit as good as the pros, isn't he?
He certainly is. And we saw him make his debut here in international class competition in GT Asia a couple of seasons ago, and won both races on debut here at this circuit. So a very, very fast driver.
Now in position number 5th on the third row of the grid, we have Mitch Gilbert. Again, we mentioned the person, well, he's sometimes Malaysian, sometimes Australian, sometimes a Brit. We all like to describe him in different ways. He will be carrying 20 kilos alongside Jeffrey Lee, who qualified very well on the third row in 6th position. And then KOU well placed in 7th.
Yeah, alongside Alessio Picarello, we're talking about 8th position, 2:35.7, yet pole position was a 2:29. That's 8 seconds slower. That's the difference, not because of any other problem, but the difference between slick tyres and wet weather tyres. Frankie Cheng, the winner last time out, sadly for him, position number 9. Stefan Rakelmi in the Castrol Racing Team car, the all-green car, just coming on screen now in position number 10. Sean Thong, frustrating for the Phoenix Racing Asia driver, racing for Audi Tita Racing. Position 11, position 12, Andrew Kim, subbing for Marchi Lee, who won here last year in the Audi Hong Kong car.
And I remember a few years ago when Andrew Kim, another young Korean driver, first made his debut in the car, but at this very circuit, he was so fast in qualifying, some of the drivers were wondering, is he an amateur, is he a professional, what's going on here? Didn't qualify so well today, but we've seen one of the widest spreads, I think, in the timing, just because of that difference between the wet and the dry weather and that tyre choice. You know, so if I'm going to put you on the spot here, Sean, got just a few moments before the race. Martin Rump, he's got to start as a strong favourite. Can he win?
I think certainly Martin Rump would be the favourite, but I would not discount the number 1 car. We've seen this before. When Alex Young has been down, he's been able to come through and recover and really battle hard. So he's a driver who can overcome things like confidence or a lack thereof because of a couple of bad results. We've seen it before. Bad on a Saturday, strong on a Sunday, or vice versa. He really is a class competitor, so keep a close eye too on the number 1 Audi R8 LMS Cup car. And
from a neutral point of view, it's great to have this open up the champion a bit with the championship leader, Alessio Picarello, down in 8th position. So it's definitely a chance for a lot of his rivals to try to close the gap at the top of the table. But he's so good, you wouldn't bet against him making a charge up to the podium positions.
Well, some of the other drivers have pointed out that they're going to have to keep a close eye on him too, but he needs to be careful. He understands too from last year, as we saw, he won only 1 race from 12 rounds. He amassed enough championship points to be right in the fight to the final round. So he is aware that a championship is about consistency. He doesn't need to risk anything, so I would suggest that the Belgian will err on the side of caution today.
Take the points for 4th or 5th and so on, and don't take any risks.
Absolutely.
Then again, he's the racing driver. He's the young, impulsive Belgian. Well, all these youngsters they want nothing less than a victory. So I don't know. There's the head and the heart, and you never quite know who's going to win in that scenario.
Certainly, they're all racing drivers. They want to win. They will admit that. But we say again, last year he was a very smart racer. So he is going to be one to keep an eye on. And here we are getting ready for a start. Will they send them around one more time, or will they give them the start at Korea International Circuit? Keep an eye on those red lights. They're out and we're away. Look at Alex Young on the second row trying to make a jump around Martin Rump. They need to be to the right of screen, which is the inside for turn 1. David Chen dropping back a little bit there, and that looks like it's the J-Fly entry. Oh, that's on further back. That was Anthony Liu in a very similar livery up to position number 3. So he is right in the mix there too. And Mitch Gilbert too. Drag race now on the run down to turn 3 alongside that car of Anthony Liu.
Very unfortunate start there for David Chen, already down to 7th position, perhaps the inexperience there of the rolling start, but a great start for Alex Young in that number 1 car in 2nd position, right behind Martin Rump.
We also talk caution as he goes down the inside now, David Chen, and that is Stefan Rakelmi going very deep down there at turn 3 into the outfield. Fortunately, a lot of runoff there and can carry on. Look at that pack further back. They are fighting very hard. KOU defending his position up to position number 4 now, and that on the outside is David Chen making a recovery. There is Alessio Picarello still a little bit further back at about position number 8 or 9, and under fire now from Frankie Cheng. It really is mixed up. This is where the contacts happened last year between Alex Young and Alessio Picarello. They need to be careful getting through here cleanly, as you see the gold car there on screen, and that is Andrew Kim from South Korea.
And the flashing lights there at some of the cars at the front, that is the push to pass and the drivers, depending on the category they're in, they get these extra boosts of 50 horsepower throughout the race, and you can see the number of push-to-passes remaining on the panel, on the back to or on the rear of the windscreen there on the window. So that's something also to keep an eye on as this race progresses. But some more contact here.
And that's turned David Chen around. That was right in front of points leader Alessio Figueroa. That was a battle with KOU, defending very, very hard down that part. Turn 10 on the circuit, and that saw contact. That's not what they need. That will lose David Chen those positions. He'll have to work to recover that as this race goes on. Well, we're talking still, the circuit surface is still very slippery. Light rain falling around Korea International.
Well, David Chen had a remarkable first lap. A lot of action happening here, and that looks Alessio Picciarello there. Oh, side by side, does just about go through. He does make another position up. So we'll see at the end of this first lap how far he's climbed up through this field. The top three, though, of Martin Rump and Alex Young and Mitch Gilbert, are already starting to make some headway early on in this 30-minute race. And we'll just get the end of the lap here to update you on positions.
That's KOU battling with Frankie Chung. You see Frankie Chung on push to pass. KOU hasn't used his push to pass, but he's got the inside run down to turn 1. He's going to try and continue to hold out the man who won last time round. And that, of course, in the FAW-VW car of Frankie Cheng, the 31 car on screen, will be looking to try and make up what will be position number 7 further back. Up front, though, Martin Rump under a little bit of fire now from the man we were talking about at the start of this race, and that, of course, is Alex Young. And immediately behind the 2 leaders is Mitch Gilbert. Is off the circuit now, the 37 car. That is Anthony Liu. He really did lose out that last lap and was right up in position 4 early in this race and dropping back down the Audi. You can see him at the top of the screen there, rejoining. Sean Thong now up to position 4. He's done a great job, and Alessio Picciarello holding down 5th position.
Well, that is Frankie Chung trying to make a move, but not going past KOU this time. KOU doing pretty well there.
Riquelme just spinning there on the exit of the corner, so frustration for the Castrol Racing team, and KO's really battling hard. This is his circuit. He doesn't want to let anybody through. Frankie spun on the exit on the wet circuit. He needs to be careful not to get back on the power too quickly and make contact with any of the other drivers.
Well, we got a large crowd inside the VIP lounge here, mostly Korean fans. They very much enjoyed that as their man finally won out in that battle, KOU. We'll see exactly how far he is. He started in position number 7, but he's been making good progress. Always very aggressive, and particularly so on his home turf here.
He loves his home circuit. It's up the front there is Alex Young taking the lead away from Martin Rump. Mitch Gilbert looking to try and make up a position. Now, this hasn't quite worked out exactly as Martin Rump had planned. He thought he could get away from the field. He felt he had the pace to win this race, but quite clearly, Alex Young had something waiting for him, and he believes he can do the same.
Gilbert, remember, in third, the back of those two there, has 20 kilos, but he's looking faster than Rump at the moment, putting him under pressure. So I'm not sure if Martin has a problem, or he's just not quite up to race speed. He got a lot of good luck actually in qualifying, hadn't really completed much practice throughout the weekend, so perhaps he's struggling from that aspect.
The Champion Racing team, supported by KCMG, had a few dramas across recent rounds. They'd had to almost completely rebuild the car at Suzuka just prior to the race event, and there's still a few little niggling issues that kept Martin Rump from making too much practice time. Oh, Alessio Picciarello had the tail end step out. He got onto the ripple strip under the braking point, and you see he's lost some ground there now on Sean Thong. Needs to be very careful. Windscreen wipers on. Talking to Martin Rump after his qualifying effort earlier, he said the track surface when it was damp was just treacherous. He said this part of the circuit coming out of turn 2, he said he got onto the power very hard and got what we call in Australia a tank slapper. The car went full lock left, full lock right, and he managed to keep it on the track surface. And he said it was very, very treacherous. You see Sean Thong just trying to find some adhesion and just to see how much grip he has in that number 8 Teeter Racing entry, back in position number 4. So number 1 is Alex Young, the reigning champion. There is Martin Rump. He's been taken for position now by the OD Racing entry of Mitch Gilbert, the Malaysian, forward to position number 2. Now, Sean Thong's looking to try and make a position forward for Phoenix Racing Asia.
More sliding.
Martin Rump. That's what we were just talking about. That's what a tank slapper is. and he's got completely sideways, tried to collect it and kept it in a straight line. Often the result of doing something like that is you come off the throttle and that forces the car into a spin. He at least modulated the throttle to try and keep the car going forward, and that was an amazing job just to keep that car going in a straight-ish line.
Now, Sean, how much of this is weather conditions? It's all about the tyre and the track surface, and how much of it just trying to do too much to get back and regain some of the positions he'd lost?
I think that's part of it. I think he's probably got on the throttle just a little bit too early, and that has forced the tail out. Now, you look at Alex Young, who's continuing to pull away at the front of this field, and that has a lot to do with pure experience. Of course, one of the most experienced campaigners in the Audi R8 LMS Cup, and he wins 2 of every 5 starts that he makes. So he really is a champion 3 times because he is just this good.
Well, we spoke earlier about how he said to us in Japan that he'd thrown in the towel on this season, but he's not going to give up his title. Looking for 4 in a row, unprecedented if he could do it this year. But this is absolutely the perfect start for him so far. Don't want to jinx him, of course, but if he can try and eat into that championship lead and work his way back up the table, perhaps that'll put more pressure on Alessio Picariello. We might see some more mistakes.
We may see some more mistakes, and we have seen pressure applied to a number of people, including Sean Thong applying pressure to Alex Young in earlier rounds of this championship. We've seen him behind the reigning champion flashing his headlights, and we commented at the time we didn't think that would work, but not long after, unfortunately, Alex Young was off the circuit. Perhaps it did work, but applying pressure is part of the equation. There's certainly a man back there further, right at the back of screen there, KOU. He's applying plenty of pressure to the man who started this race from pole position. That is the champion racing team entry on screen of Martin Rump. But up front, continues to extend this lead, although Mitch Gilbert's not doing a bad job now. He is closing the gap down very, very slightly. It's about 1.7 seconds at the front of this field between the number 1 car and the number 86 entry of Mitch Gilbert.
Well, ominously, that Alessio Picariello with that massive championship lead, already up from 8th to 4th position. You said he should just take some points, write this race off and then carry on with still a healthy lead. I think knowing Alessio, he's going to try and go for the podium.
We have to just paraphrase something that Alex Young said that we've quoted a couple of times, that he'd thrown in the towel with the championship. The other thing he said is, OK, I'm going to forget about the championship. Now I just want race wins. So this might be the start of a new Alex Young for this season. If he just focuses on each race as it comes rather than a championship, who knows where this season could end up. But it's a good result so far for the man they call the Malaysian Master, of course, former Formula 1 driver Alex Young.
And we should point out that we're only up before the start of this race, only 4 races into a 10-race season, so still plenty of time for someone to put a strong run together and close that gap with Alessio at the top. But we'll see how things pan out in the second half of this race.
Certainly the championship moves on to Shanghai in China and then finishes at the New Zhejiang circuit later in the year. There is a long way to go, but this tonight, when we finish this race, of course, this will be the midpoint of the 2017 championship, the 6th season of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Of course, 3 of those seasons have been won already by the reigning champion, the man who's leading this race, and that is Alex Young. On screen, that would be the number 7 J-Fly entry, Audi Taiwan entry of Jeffrey Lee, very experienced campaigner around here, and Burapir Mbakti from Thailand, making his one of his few appearances. Of course, he made a couple of cameo starts last year, notably at the Buriram circuit in Thailand, his home country, but he's really enjoying driving this Audi R8 LMS GT3 for the Singer Plan B team. Windscreen wipers back on. There's Andrew Kim in the background. He is in this battle, subbing for Marchie Lee, who won here last year after that fantastic fight between Alessio and Alex Young. Ended in tears coming through turn 4, 5 and 6. And Martin Rump started this race, of course, on pole position, but he is slipping back through the field, and these guys will be hoping that they can make their way further forward. But the weather, I think, is still yet to play its hand in this race, and Andrew Kim needs to be very careful, not changing directions too much, because he might find himself facing very quickly in the wrong direction.
And the track itself doesn't look too wet, but the fact that they still have their windscreen wipers on shows you that there is still significant rainfall carrying down as the number 5 car of Andrew Kim looks to make a move on Jeffrey Lee. Not this time, however.
Jeffrey knows his way around a circuit. He's done this for a long time. He has more starts in this series than anyone else in this field, and certainly very treacherous conditions. We can't explain just how damp it is out there. Watching Martin Rump throw himself off the circuit, a number of drivers have had a spin. It is very, very slippery. And you've got to remember these cars are travelling well in excess of 250 kilometres per hour on this circuit. So it is a very big experience for these drivers to just hang on there. As you can see, Andrew Kim ran very wide there, but experience played into that too. He didn't get too hard on the throttle and just brought himself back in under the rear wing of the number 7 car. So he is being very, very careful, but clearly not wet enough to bring them down pit lane. Will somebody make the first choice and be the first one down pit lane? And he's, or will they carry on with the slick tyres?
Andrew flashing his lights there with Jeffrey. We mentioned that with Sean Thong and Alex Young in a previous race. So can we expect Jeffrey to spin at any time under pressure?
I'm not sure that's going to work on Jeffrey Lee. Jeffrey Lee's a fairly relaxed character, loves his motorsport, been doing it a very, very long time, and of course the most experienced campaigner in the Audi R8 LMS Cup field. So I don't think he's going to be under too much pressure in that J-Fly entry. So up the front of the field, here is the race leader, the number 1 entry, 3-time champion. That is Alex Young. Second for Audi Racing, prepared by Absolute. That is the 86 car of Mitch Gilbert. And third, he has been on the podium already this year, is Phoenix Racing Asia's Sean Thong. A little bit further back there, Stefan Riquelme. We saw him off the circuit early, run very, very wide. We saw a spin for the 99 of David Chen, but he has managed to regroup and he is working his way forward in this field, back up to position 7 in the Tianxia Racing Team entry.
Well, we saw the top 3 go through, and Sean Thong starting from 8th position already into the podium positions and running very well. What a race from him so far.
He certainly has done a very good job. Very, very experienced campaigner now in GT competition. Drives with Marchi Lee in the Blancpain GT Series Asia and was winner last time out at Suzuka. And they credit a lot of that success, of course, with the fact that we're at Audi R8 LMS Cup for the second event of the season, the first time it had been at Suzuka, just a couple of weeks before the Blancpain event. So clearly they took advantage of that experience with Audi and took their Audi R8 LMS GT3 to victory. Sean Thong and Marchi Lee. So that has helped. Sean Thong really is laying claim to being one of the future rising stars. And he really is a rising star in Asia to take the mantle, of course, from his mentor. And that is, of course, Hong Kong's Marchi Lee. Sadly, Marchi not here this weekend. Commitments in Europe with the factory as an ambassador for Audi Hong Kong. And he has another mentor, of course, with Alex Young.
Well, Marchi's absence has allowed Andrew Kim to step in and have another Korean driver for this local crowd. But at the top, we have Alex Young, who's got about a 3-second gap now from Mitch Gilbert and Sean Thong. Then Alessio Picciariello a little bit behind. So the top 4 kind of grouped together out the front. Then a bit of a gap to Martin Rump in 5th, who still there, still getting some points, but he's going to be very disappointed after starting from pole position.
Well, I think the other side of this, of course, is that he needs championship points. So whilst he may be disappointed, he needs to be careful not to make too many tough calls on himself and also focus on the job at hand. It may well be that they've tried something on strategy with tyres and not quite got the pressures perhaps right for the start of this race. There's still a way to go, and he may be able to work himself back into contention. But certainly experience is playing a big part in these conditions, and that has a lot to do, I'm sure, with why the number 1 car is leading this field around. But here we look like some sort of revival too from Alessio Picciariello as he closes in on the tail of the number 8 car.
And just keep an eye on the red numbers on the backs of the car. That is the number of push-to-pass boosts they have remaining. That could be significant as we come to the end of the race. And we spoke to some of the drivers before the race. They said they do everything they can to see how many their rivals still have. They know if they have more, if they have to keep some in reserve. You never know quite what's going to happen if a safety car comes out and you need to use it again at the restart. But that is something that could play into the strategy here in the final few laps of this race. But Sean, just one question here. One thing that perhaps is helping the leader on the championship, Alessio Picciariello, is the fact that his nearest rival, Frankie Chung, down in 8th position. So he was the nearest, starting in second, 41 points behind. He's not going to be able to close that gap. In fact, it's going to widen with Frankie, and he'll probably lose second in the championship.
Not really sure about the English school system, given that you said 41. When I did the math from the Australian system, it was 31 points, but that's okay. Regardless, it's still a big deficit that Frankie Cheng needs to make up, and he is the closest competitor to Alessio Picciariello. So he will be doing what he can, but the ideal position for Picciariello, he will be keeping an idea on exactly where Frankie Cheng is in this field to know whether he has to keep pushing. He wants to win every race. He's already admitted that. He goes into each race to win, as do every competitor in this field. But he's also trying to build a championship for his future and for his career. So he'll be mindful of that. The position in front of him, Sean Thong. Sean is looking to build a career, so he will not make it easy for the number 15 car to get past him. You can see he's running a protective line down to turn 3 by staying at the outside of the circuit. Piccarello, of course, will be looking to try and get some sort of slipstream and maybe make up a position as further back this battle now between KOU and Anthony Liu goes on in the number 37 entry.
And Alessio, we saw,
push to pass going. And push to pass, we just very quickly touch on that. You did explain that you see it flashing. When it's flashing, that means push to pass works. Each of the pro drivers at the front of this field have 5 opportunities to get an extra 50 horsepower for up to 10 seconds. Used in a straight line. You see the 3 on the side there of Anthony Liu's car. The AM Plus competitors, Anthony Liu and David Chen are AM Plus competitors. They have 10 opportunities to use push to pass. And the AM competitors, Jeffrey Lee is one of those. They have 15 opportunities. Burrit Berimbakti as well have 15 opportunities to use that. In fact, Jeffrey Lee is an AM Plus, of course. He's the reigning AM Cup champion from 2016. He is classified an AM Plus competitor. So he has 10 opportunities to use that push to pass. And it's a strategy call as to when you use that.
It is, and it's a nice leveler that Audi have brought into the Cup this season to try and give some of the drivers in the AM and the AM Plus class a chance to stay with the pros. Otherwise, it's sometimes a little bit too unfair. But as you said, strategy, particularly, you never know with these wet conditions if the safety car comes out and you built a big gap, that can disappear in a moment. But just a little bit left in this race. We're into the final third of the race here with Alex Young looking pretty comfortable at the front. But a person who's not looking comfortable a little bit further back, it was Sean Thong. Under pressure we saw from Alessio Picariello. Not these two on screen. We're seeing it's
Jeffrey Lee and Andrew Kim still fighting for a position a little bit further back in the field. That's position number 12. Oh, contact! Oh, and that has done a lot of damage to the left front of the number 5 car of Andrew Kim. Of course, the car that is normally run by Marchi Lee from Audi Hong Kong. And there is the Audi Taiwan entry of Jeffrey Lee. He'll be hoping to restart that. Hopefully the damage isn't too bad and he is able to continue on in this race, but he won't be too happy with that move. Conditions playing a little bit into this, but whilst we say that, we also see a lap time, fastest lap for Alex Young at the front of the field at 2:10.7, very close to the pace they were showing during dry running in practice. So I'd suggest that whilst windscreen wipers are on some of these cars, that may be because the driver has other things on his mind. It isn't actually that wet.
And just to compare, that is 19 seconds, 18.5 seconds quicker than he did in qualifying. So that tells you the difference between the conditions from then to now. Massive difference. But here we go. The number 37 car, he's been pressing all race long. Anthony Liu going past KOU.
I don't think you're going to go around the outside of KOU around Korea International Circuit. No, he's just been able to keep Anthony Liu wide, and that is the position where we had that big incident last year between Alex Young and Alessio Picariello. So they will be students of history. They'll know exactly what took place there last year, and of course they've given each other a little bit more racing room. But going around the outside of KOU on his home circuit, I don't think is the inspired choice for Anthony Liu in this case.
Well, the fans,
he is still back in position 10.
The fans here eagerly watching and cheering on their man. He's always in the thick of the action wherever he is in the field, it seems to be. But he's certainly not going to give up this place easily. But Anthony giving it a pretty good shot.
2 experienced campaigners these days have done a lot of mileage and very popular, as you say, the man at home. The Audi career entry, KOU, has been a podium finisher here in the past from the 6 prior races to this one with the Audi R8 LMS Cup at Korea International Circuit. 2-time winner so far in those 6 races has been Alex Young, as under brakes Anthony Liu takes a big run. Here is further forward in the field. This is for position number 3. You can see the Absolute Racing team watching on to see where their man Alessio Picariello will end up, but that is Sean Thong currently holding position 3, the Audi TD Racing team for Phoenix Racing Asia.
Alessio, of course, remember, in position number 4, does have 35 kilos in the car, so that should definitely favour the young Sean Thong in position number 3, the number 8 car. But Alessio's been so good with the extra weight in his car already this season that, well, it seems to be pretty balanced.
Well, the other thing he'll be considering, of course, is the fact that maybe he doesn't need to pass Sean Thong, take an extra 20 kilos into the second race later. By sitting in position 4, he is the first car that will be coming through that will not carry weight into the next race. Of course, the first 3 will carry success ballast, 50 for first, 35 for second and 20 for third into race 2 tomorrow. But still, Alessio needs to be very careful not to go too wide on these ripple strips, given this circuit is still damp on the outfield here at Korea International.
And one small change we have seen for this race weekend, Sean, is the fact that the qualifying sessions for the 2 races have been split up. So we'll see the grid set for tomorrow's race tomorrow morning. Previously, we had the 2 qualifying sessions together. Not quite sure how that's going to play into it, but of course, Alessio could start from pole if he has a good session tomorrow.
Well, Martin Rump was saying prior to the start of this race, he said it starts things all over again. So he said it's interesting, it's a different scenario. You're not thinking about setting the fastest lap, as you say, to set the grid for the second race. Now starts scratch tomorrow morning, provided all the cars are running, everybody's happy. Qualifying will set the grid for the second race here at Korea International Circuit. Of course, round 6 of the 2017 season and the start of the second leg of the 10 rounds we will see this year.
And you would think this probably gives an advantage to Alessio. He had such a poor qualifying session because of that wet-dry issue that we talked about previously. He can put that aside after a pretty good drive today, wherever he finishes, should he stay in 4th or get into the podium positions. And then tomorrow he can really come back, fresh tyres, have another crack, and hope to start well up the field for the second race.
Certainly without carrying that additional weight success ballast, he will put that to good use. But of course, qualifying is the vital point. But they've learned something now as to whether or not they do take those kinds of risks, take the safe option, or spin the dice and try something a little bit different to their rivals. And see windscreen wipers on the number 7 car too, as he's about to be lapped by Alex Young, the race leader here for Audi R8 LMS Cup, driving of course for the Phoenix Racing Asia squad. Jeffrey just moves out of the way on the exit of turn 3 and allows the leaders to run through, and he will continue on. Of course, not too much drama for him back there in position number 13. 14th position in this race. In fact, it's just changed. Berit Berembakti would have been working his way forward. Unfortunately for the Thai driver, he had technical issues during qualifying. Required an engine change between qualifying and the race, and they've been able to affect that. In fact, he missed qualifying, didn't record a time. After practice, he had an issue, and they put a new engine in that car, and the Singer Plan B racing entry will be working his way back up the order. And it looks like there's been a little bit of a gap closed now between Sean Thong and Mitch Gilbert, so could yet put the Malaysian driver under pressure, and that will suit Alessio Piccarello just right. If there's a bit of a drama in front of him, he could take advantage of that.
That's right. And you just have to wonder, he has closed the gap long ago in this race up to Sean Thong, but he's been about half a second behind for the last several laps without making an obvious move. Perhaps, as he's mentioned, he's just happy to sit in 4th, take the points, and then go weight-free into tomorrow's race. Of course, should there be a mistake from Sean or even from Mitch ahead of him in position number 2, he's not going to look a gift horse in the mouse and move into the podium spots, but perhaps that's playing. He doesn't want to make a move and crash out. And if that is what he's doing, it's a very smart, sensible strategy from the young Belgian.
Well, certainly if he has an opportunity, he will capitalise. He seems to have gotten a little bit closer that last time round. He may well have something in reserve, where we talk about tyre wear with the Pirelli controlled tyre, the DH compound. Very, very versatile and doesn't have a lot of performance drop-off. However, once you're following another car, that does increase all kinds of issues. The airflow is different around the car. It gets awful hot too, and not perhaps always taking the perfect line with the car immediately in front, just in case you are going to go for some kind of move. So he's got a few things that he is calculating as he circulates, and he may just be lulling Sean Thong into a sense of security, perhaps, that he isn't going to make a move and mount an attack in the closing stages of this race and perhaps take both cars immediately in front of him. Certainly has the pace, but you look at that big orange 0 on the side of his car, I don't think he has any push to pass left.
That's right. Well, Gilbert now definitely in play here with these other 2 cars behind, but Alex Young well out in front, back up to about 3.5 seconds at the front, but not long left in this race to go. So you can see Sean got still a couple of push to passes left, and he might yet need them. There's no point taking them back into the garage, no point whatsoever leaving them out on the track. And Alessio's still very, very close here, looking for a mistake from Sean Thong in front of him.
Alessio Picarello is well aware of how many push-to-pass Sean Thong has left on that car, and Sean will be doing everything he can when he gets through some of these corners, looking in the rear vision mirror to try and determine just what Alessio has left, because he can certainly make the blocking move. The car in front does control the race so far as an overtake is concerned. But if he has those additional push-to-passes, he may well put them into good effect if he does, in fact, come under fire from Alessio.
Well, not long left in this race at all, and Alex Young looking very, very comfortable. It's been a fantastic result from him, particularly starting from the second row of the grid. And he will be trying to show, well, he has been showing the form that we've seen for the last 3 seasons, and even before that in this series. But so far, coming into this race, he was down in 7th position in the standings. Scarcely believable from after what we've seen, what got used to seeing from Alex Young. But he looks to be back on form right here in Korea.
Well, certainly this would be win number 2 for the Malaysian driver. The last lap board now being shown to the drivers. And this could be, well, win number 2 for the reigning champion. 2 wins already for Alessio Picarello. This would be the worst result for Alessio Picarello this year in the 5th round. 4th position, of course, 2 victories, 2 second-place finishes, a number of pole positions. He really has been the standout this year, but sitting comfortably in position 4 at this stage.
And given the context of what happened in qualifying and where he is in the standings, I don't think he's going to be too unhappy with this finish.
Oh, we've just put the commentator's cursor on him. He came very close under brakes to driving into the back of the number 8 Tita Racing entry. He's managed to use the runoff on the exit of turn 3 to avoid him, but not really sure what was going on there. Maybe he thought he could make a move at the last minute, but certainly that was very, very close at the final lap of this race. So you can never say never in these races. It comes all the way down to the final lap, and it could all be over for Alessio Picarello after we've been praising him for his consistency so far
for
this year.
sitting back there in 4th position, suddenly if he was to get 0 points, that really would have shaken up his title race.
You'll definitely be off his Christmas card list now after promoting some sort of positive thought for the young Belgian driver.
So if he doesn't watch this race back.
But up front, Alex Young is doing everything we've seen from him in the past. Recovers from adversity. He's had a tough start to this year. Yes, he's had a win, but he's had a number of DNFs and spins and problems that we're not used to seeing for the Malaysian drivers. So a nice recovery for him. Let's hope he gets to the finish of this race, given what we've just seen down at turn 3. But he certainly looks comfortable in the number 1 car, the Audi R8 LMS Cup entry for Phoenix Racing Asia. And this will be a good, solid result for the Malaysian driver, and 2 good result for Mitch Gilbert in position number 2. So it's Malaysia 1, Malaysia 2 as it stands right at the moment. Coming through the final corner, through the left-hand kink, and this is victory for Alex Young, victory number 2 for the year, and a nice result for him. Mitch Gilbert, good recovery, Audi Racing to take position number 2 from Sean Thong under his rear wing for the Audi Tita Racing team, and a good haul of points there, hanging on in the end for the MGT team by absolute entry of the points leader, Alessio Picarello. Martin Rump recovers from pole position to take position number 5. Great recovery from Stefan Rakelmi in the Audi Castrol Racing entry to take position number 6 after that spin early in this race. Position number 7, he had a spin to David Chen for the Tianxia Racing team. Frankie Cheng, the man who won last time out at Suzuka, round 4 of the championship, crosses the line in position 8. Position 9, the local hero, KOU, and position 10, Anthony Liu in the Absolute Racing entry.
Well, pretty good performance from Alex Young, but perhaps the standout performance of the race, Sean Thong starting in 11th position and going all the way up to 3rd, and he will be leapfrogging at least Martin Rump going up in the overall standings. We'll get you confirmation of that later on when we just tally up all the points. But what a race from the young Hong Kong driver.
Yeah, good haul of points for him too. He'll need that in his championship bid. I mean, a lot of the drivers are saying it's game over so far as Alessio Picarello is concerned. Such is his lead in the championship. Today, this is the 5th round of the championship. We're at the midpoint of the season. His worst finishing result is 4th place. He's won twice, second twice, a number of fastest laps. He's amassing a championship very, very nicely.
And perhaps ominously, we spoke to Mitch Gilbert earlier, and he said, well, he's had some good results. I want to see what happens when he has some hiccups, when he's put under pressure. Well, he was certainly put under pressure with that qualifying performance this morning, and he's responded very, very well. Almost disaster for him there in the final stages of this last lap, but 4th position, having started down in 8th, is pretty impressive.
Let's jump back 12 months ago. Remember, as we got to the end of a 12-round season in 2016, and we were at Taiwan, which I think was the 2nd last event of the year, or the 3rd last event of the year, and he was a little frustrated that he was leading the championship points. He was right in the fight, but he was against Martin Rump, who'd won at that stage 2 races. I think Alex Young had won 2 or 3 by that stage. He said, I just want to win a race. I could end up winning the championship without winning a race, and that's frustrating. And then he got that, of course, emphatic victory at Taiwan, first race at the Taiwanese circuit. And he was very relieved to have done that, but only 1 win, but lost the championship by just a single point against a driver that won 3 races. And of course, Martin Rump won 4 races. So it's about being an intelligent driver. Not suggesting that any of these drivers are anything but that, but you have to strategize and put a championship together. And that's exactly what Alessio Piccirillo is doing. But nobody can take the win away from Alex Young, the Malaysian driver. A great recovery, and he'll be very, very happy with this. Watch the celebration. Yep, up on the roof. Number 1. Yes, I'm back. And I've had a win. That's exactly what I need. Take that, you young boys. I still got it. 2nd for Mitch Gilbert. Malaysia 1-2. Martin Kuhl, Director of Audi Sport Customer Racing Asia, comes in for the customary hug for the winner. Congratulations for his team. Good recovery for the Phoenix Racing Asia operation that felt they were a little bit caught out by qualifying. Didn't have their cars as far up the field as they would have liked, but 2 cars, 1st and 3rd for them on the grid here for round 5 at Korea International.
Well, we'll be hearing from Alex in just a few moments' time. She'll be talking to Sophie as soon as she can wind her way through that crowd of adoring fans and teammates congratulating the Malaysian. And so we can hear from Alex Young, who's managed to haul himself back into this race. At least we think so. Let's see what he thinks. He's down with Sophie, and we can hear from him now.
Alex Young, congratulations for taking your first win here in Korea. And starting from 2nd and finish on 1st, is this the best result for you? And do you find your pace gradually in the Cup this year?
Yeah, no, it's really good. As soon as we tried a couple of things setup-wise, to try and move the car forward, and straight away from the first lap in free practice 1, I could tell the car was better. So I knew we had a good car. Unfortunately, we had problems in free practice 2 and qualifying, so we weren't able to show the true pace. But yeah, I knew once I got in front of Rump, I could just pull away, and that's what we did. The car was excellent. You know, Phoenix Racing Asia did a great job.
Thank you so much, Alex Young, and congratulations once again, and back to your guys.
Yeah, well, certainly for Alex Young, 3rd win here in, well, that's 7 starts now at Korea International Circuit, and a nice recovery after what was a fairly torrid weekend for him at Suzuka International Circuit. And funnily enough, he was one of the drivers with a lot of experience going into Suzuka. Of course, he'd driven Formula 1 there twice. His Formula 1 career ended at Suzuka, so it was a circuit he had a lot of experience with, and unfortunately just didn't have the results. Alessio Piccirillo, he hadn't been there before, but he really did have the result that he wanted. So Sophie's down on the grid. She is with the man who finished 2nd in this race, and that is Audi Racing's Mitch Gilbert.
Mitch, starting from 5th place and finish on 2nd, especially with 20 kg in your car, talk us through the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of the race was crazy. It was a bit of rain. It was really difficult to even predict what was going to happen with the track and that. So, I mean, I got a good first corner, and alongside Anthony, I went across the grass. Thought it was going to be a huge crash, but I managed to keep it going, and I had a good race with Martin and Alex, and once I passed Martin, Alex was a bit too strong. The first half I was kind of okay to keep up with him, and then I just need to work a little bit at the end. The whole season I've been struggling the last 5-6 laps, so I mean, it's good. I finished 2nd, I keep finishing on podium. I mean, I can't complain, and I'm happy, so yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mitch. And now it's our time, back to our commentators.
Well, Sean, we've we talked about the service teams here, and of course, if they're in the same team as Mitch is with Alessio, they're able to compare that data. How much of an advantage is that? It's obviously worked for them pretty well so far this year.
He's admitted that has been a big thing for him this year, to be able to overlay his data with Alessio Piccirillo, and he said he's got some things that he notices with Alessio that are a little bit difficult to duplicate, but he said it's very, very interesting to be able to compare. He said, I'm not far off, he's just got that slight edge. So 3rd position is down on the grid with Sophie, and that of course is Sean Thong from Audi Tita Racing Team.
Sean Thong, especially at the last few laps, you have really fierce combat with the driver Mitch before you and Alessio behind you. Would you like to share with us your experience for the first race?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the toughest races so far in the Cup season for me, because I started P12, which is second last after really bad qualifying. So all I have in my mind is basically to make up positions and get more points. And I managed to make a really good start and avoid all sort of accidents in the first few laps. So I get myself into a podium position, which is pretty much the result. But I mean, Alessio is catching up really fast, even with 35 kilos weight, and Mitch is also carrying extra ballast weight. So I knew I was going to catch him, but it seems like the time is running out. But I can't ask for more for a podium finish after starting from the last row.
Thank you so much, Sean Thong. And now it's your time back to the panel.
Well, Sean, the other Sean Thong, mentioned how great a start he had made. We saw one of the most dramatic starts we've seen for a long, long time. Not in terms of contact, but in terms of the moving of the places. David Chen, unfortunately, started from the first row, slipped right down. Sean Thong managed to pick up a number of places. It was well, action-packed race right from the start.
Well, certainly that was a big part of it, I think, experience. We were talking earlier, and we saw that. Look at the driver who won. Probably the most experienced driver in the field, arguably the most experienced driver in the field. And he used that to drive away, do the pace that he needed to do and just keep things going. But before we go too much further, looks like we will be taking a run back through how round 5 of the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup played out. It certainly was an interesting race. We're talking about the weather as we led into this race, and it made things very, very interesting. It mixed up qualifying, but then we came into the race, and of course we had Martin Rump starting from pole position, controlling the field on the run down to turn 1. Let's take a look back at how all of that played out.
Well, this is the start that we were talking about. Some dramatic changes in position with the green car there of David Chen slipping back from the front row as Alex Young in the number 1 car in the middle came right through to tuck in nicely into second position behind Martin Rump.
And he used that experience to find the right traction. There you see Alessio Piccarello starting well down the order on the extreme outside of the circuit, even went down the grass on the exit of turn 2. And that allowed him to make up some positions. See, David Chen got caught in left of field. Stefan Riquelme ran off and ran wide down at turn 3, was able to regroup and come into this field without losing too much positions, and he managed to start to work his way forward. Still got very messy towards the midfield. Alessio Piccarello working his way through without too much contact. And David Chen had a spin going through the mid-pack there, and a number of cars were able to avoid him, including Frankie Cheng on screen. KOU by that stage, ahead of the points leader. He was doing everything he could to try and ride a very, very wide car. The Audi Korea entry. Good battle there with Frankie Cheng. It got a little bit heated, a little bit of contact, some sparks. And he had a spin on the exit, and that was frustration for the man who'd won last time out at Suzuka.
KOU coming out on top that time to the delight, as we mentioned, of his home fans. Didn't quite manage to capitalise on that, but certainly in amongst the action, as he always seems to be here in Korea.
Yeah, certainly was, and because we had a good battle towards the back of the field too. This was Jeffrey Lee defending very, very hard from Andrew Kim in the orange, the gold and silver car, of course, that we see for Marchi Lee, a winner here last year. Disappointment for Jeffrey. That dropped him a little bit further back and lost a lot of time as he got the car going again. Up front though, no such drama for the man in the number 1 car, and that, of course, was the reigning champion, Alex Young. Another victory. This would be his 3rd win at Korea International Circuit from 7 starts, and he comfortably made the checkered flag in front of this field, and really did make a great recovery after what was a tough weekend for him at Suzuka in Japan last time out.
Well, it certainly closed up the standings in the top of this championship race, and we're happy to have the championship leader with us, Alessio Piccarello, of course. And Alessio, we wouldn't normally be just a moment here in the panel. We wouldn't normally be saying, Alessio, congratulations after a 4th place finish, but given what happened, the disappointment that you had in qualifying earlier, I'm guessing you're pretty happy today.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that was a race with a lot of troubles for me. I got hit at the start and my car was damaged from the beginning on. But yeah, it was raining in the beginning. I was really quick, but then it stopped, and my pace was still okay, but I was struggling pretty much also with the success ballast here. It's really tough. I had no chance to really pass because out of the slow corners I was just too slow, so it was difficult to pass Chen. But it's good points, and I have to look forward for tomorrow.
Alessio, we'll just come back to you in a moment. We'll just go through the podium ceremony here.
Yeah, good result for Alex Young, and also Mitch Gilbert there to his left, on left of screen, the Malaysia. So Malaysia 1-2, good day for them. Sean Thong from Hong Kong, position number 3, and a good haul of points for the Audi Tita Racing team entry. Of course, the fastest lap too for Alex Young. Rebecca Lee from Pirelli handing the new trophy from Pirelli to the Malaysian driver. Sean Thong's had a couple of those this year as well. Of course, last time out at Suzuka, and a good result for these 3 drivers.
Well, Sean, our cameraman, getting a little bit of a shower there, as often seems to be the case. These racing drivers are naughty, aren't they? Alessio Piquero is still with us here. We'll be able to join him in just a moment's time as we come through the Amplas podium in a moment.
Certainly very excited, Alex Young. I haven't seen him that excited for a little while. It wasn't much to celebrate last time out at Suzuka, but after a reasonable start to the season in Malaysia, he took another victory there. He's won just about every year he's been in Malaysia. Certainly every start he's made. The second out of 2 starts at Malaysia, Alex Young has won 1. So his result here is very, very similar at career international circuit, but a very successful campaigner. Will be very happy with that result as we prepare again for
pretty nice landing from the camera there.
Yeah, it was a very nice landing. There is the field. There are the drivers that place first, second, and third. Good result. We're talking about David Chen in the Tianjin Racing team entry. There's been a solid beginning for that team. They made their debut last time out at Suzuka International Circuit in Japan, and he is right back in the mix here, despite that spin we saw very early in that race. But victory, of course, in this round outright to Malaysia's Alex Young, representing Audi R8 LMS Cup. And we're here with Alessio Piquero. And Alessio, I guess you would have liked to have been on the podium. What's it like watching the other drivers up there? It's the first time this year you haven't been there.
Mixed feelings.
It's a bit frustrating, but I think I have to be happy with P4. It was a day with a lot of trouble for us, but it's a good point for the championship, so it's okay.
Alessio, just talk us through the dramatic moments of the final lap. We were talking about perhaps you were happy just to take the points in fourth, go weight-free into tomorrow's race. Was that something you were thinking? Because in the last moments, looked to be a bit of a move there, but didn't quite come off. Lucky to stay in fourth, perhaps.
Not really. I mean, 25 kilos is okay. I've carried a lot of times 50, so I was going for podium. I tried something, but it didn't quite work. So, I mean, I need to take risk. It's okay. I mean, it's calculated race. So, podium is my goal was to finish on to have 100% podium at the final season, but yeah, I missed one at the moment.
Now, just talk us again, go over what happened this morning's session. It was very, very difficult for a lot of the drivers, not just yourself, experiencing that wet and dry conditions and the switch. What do you do with the tyres? Do you come in just that short amount of time? How did it play out for you?
It was quite a disaster for me. I mean, we all started in slicks, and it was really slippery, and I was just flying. I was 2 seconds faster than anyone. And actually, I think I had too much fun. I was enjoying so much, and I actually forgot to pit, and then I finally pit, but it was too late for me to put rain tires, so I didn't even do any lap with rain tires. That's why I was so far in the back, so it's all my fault, but at least I had fun.
What was it like coming to the local hero, KOU? It looked like he was driving a very, very wide car, and there was a couple of drivers ahead of you that tried a similar move, didn't quite work out.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I knew before the race he would be motivated for this one. I know also he's quite aggressive, so before the race I was aware. And I did a move where he didn't expect it around the outside in a really slow corner, so I didn't take too many risks with him, but I knew I had to pass straight away because otherwise he would have blocked me too long.
Well, we can join Sophie now, who is with David Chen, who started from the front row of the grid, slipped back a bit, but getting some valuable experience for the young Chinese driver. And we can hear him. He's with Sophie now. Oh, well, actually, Alessio, just before you run off, we're not able to join David, so just ask you one more question. Looking ahead for tomorrow's race, this, of course, weekend, there is a new change. The qualifying sessions are separate. From a driver's point of view, does that make any difference?
It depends. If you're in a good momentum at the moment of the qualifying, it can make a difference. I think for me it wouldn't make a big difference, because even if the first quali was a disaster, I would have put rain tires in the second quali and it would have been okay. So, but the good thing is tomorrow we all start at zero. We don't know what will be the conditions, but tomorrow is a new day, so that's a positive thing for me.
Congratulations to you. Well done, fantastic effort. And it's certainly about a championship this year, and you're doing all the right things. Go and rest up. You look like you've had some fairly hot work. Thanks, Alessio, that's fantastic.
Well, Sean, let's just go through some of the other positions. Of course, we had Alex, Mitch and Sean, the top three. Then Alessio, Martin Rump, 5th position. Disappointment for the young Estonian, unfortunately, having started from pole position. We're not sure if he had perhaps an issue with the car, but we know he's going to be pretty disappointed with what happened in his race.
Well, we will be interested to see exactly what he has to say. We'll talk to him after this race. We may well see him before too much longer. But Sophie is back down talking to the winners of this first race here at Korea International.
David, congratulations for taking the win of the amateur category. Starting from 2nd place, well, after one contact, I see you lost some places. But how did you adapt yourself so quickly back to the track?
Well, it was unfortunate that I spun at the beginning, but the good thing is I dropped all the way to the back of the field, and I was able to just kind of recap myself and focus on driving the clean, kind of qualified style lap and without any contact with someone. So I was able to gain back a few places and eventually finish the top of the class.
Once again, congratulations and keep the status. Good luck for tomorrow. Now it's your time back to our panel.
Well, Sean, 7th position from David Chen. Under ordinary circumstances, we'll be praising him and what a great race he had. He had a pretty action-packed race, but given that he started from 2nd, probably a mixture of happiness and satisfaction with that disappointment that he wasn't able to stay in the overall podium positions, even though he did very well within his own class.
He certainly did very, very well, and he's been a real revelation since the Tianxia Racing team debuted in the Audi R8 LMS Cup during the round at Suzuka last time out. And a good result for him, so certainly very, very good. And we look forward to seeing some more of David Chen this year. But as you say, 7th, you'd normally perhaps not be celebrating in one respect, having started from position number 2, but he is an AM Plus driver. He isn't considered one of the pro drivers yet, and certainly he drove like one in a lot of this race after that recovery from the off on lap 1.
Now looking down the standings, further down the standings from the opening race of this weekend. Stefan Rakelmi in 6th position, having started from 10th. Another good drive from him, but disappointment from qualifying. He was in the podium last time in Suzuka, which was kind of where we expected him to be when he first came into this championship at the beginning of the season. And he took a little bit of time to settle, but perhaps finding his feet out on the track now.
Of course, very experienced campaigner in Europe. He did admit that his first event at Sepang earlier in the year, that it was a little bit more challenging for him to come to grips with something a little bit new. And he struggled a little bit there, but came back at Suzuka, was very, very quick, and of course we saw him on the podium, and good recovery for him after that off in the first lap of this race.
Well, looking down the rest of the standings, we had David Chen in 7th, Frankie Chung in 8th position, KO Yu in 9th, and Anthony Liu finished in 10th position, started from the 2nd row of the grid. He'll be looking to try and make up for that disappointment perhaps tomorrow.
Certainly, and the Chinese driver has been a race winner here a number of times at Korea International Circuit in GT3 competition, so he'll be looking for that to take that experience and actually go through. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's take a quick look at one of the new innovations of Audi this year. It was debuted at the recent Nürburgring 24-hour race, and that is a car that we may well see a lot of in future, and that is the new Audi R8 GT4.
Well, Sean, it's been a pretty good race, opening race of this weekend here in Korea. We've got another race coming up tomorrow. Check the website, Audi R8LMScup.com, for all the exact timings of the live program and the race. Coming up for you in just a short moment's time, we have the press conference with the winning drivers. But before we go to that, Sean, the standout performance for you today, if you had to pick one driver, who would it be?
I think we were talking about at the start, one of the drivers you had to look at was the driver of the #1 entry, and that, of course, is the reigning champion, Alex Yoong. He drove away from the field, certainly in the tricky early conditions. He drove away from the field, opened up enough of a buffer to just be safe and cruise to the finish. I mean, that was a real standout performance. You have to give credit to Alessio Picarillo. He came through from a difficult position further back and worked his way up to position 4. So he's actually extended his advantage in the championship over his nearest rival. And that is a very important thing when you're building a championship. So good drive for him too. And as you say, frustration for Martin Rump. But keep a close eye on the number 18 champion racing entry. He'll be back tomorrow, and he'll be very keen to get himself back on the top step of the podium.
And he does have this knack of having the very, very good races and the poor ones as well. He won 4 races last year. We thought that he was set up perfectly for another race win today. He's qualified, particularly when you've got an Amateur Plus driver alongside you on the front row of the grid. So that gives him that advantage to get into that first corner in pole position. Just didn't happen for him today, though.
It didn't quite happen. He's got a lot of confidence too. I mean, we've been asking the big question over this weekend, can anyone stop Alessio? And he just shrugged and went, well, it's not a problem. I have the speed. I can match him head to head, no problem. I just haven't had the luck. Now, you make your own luck, as they say, but he's had situations where, unfortunately, the car has been damaged from another event and they've had little time to repair it. That cost them valuable track time. This weekend, he got pole position despite the fact he turned very few laps. He even had a fire in the car in first practice session. So they had to fix that, replace all the electronics in the car. That sets you back behind the 8 ball whilst your rivals are taking a forward step. So that has a big impact. You might be full of confidence, but you have to battle those things, so you might not have the mileage and the setup performance that your rivals have had that weekend. And that is what's kept Martin Rump, I'm sure. It's just the experience with the car and the time against somebody the likes of Alex Yoong, who really, I mean, there isn't anybody in this field more experienced.
That's right. He certainly had some luck, I guess you could say, with that gamble he took switching to the wet weather tyres in qualifying, and it certainly paid out for him. Worked out well for him, but the bad luck that he'd suffered without the practice that he was able to get certainly caught up with him. But Sean, it's been a fantastic race. We'll be throwing it over to the press conference now to hear from the winning drivers. We'll be back tomorrow with all the latest action from here in Korea at Audi R8 LMS Cup.com.